for having me. So I initially did this presentation as part of a presentation actually for families and individuals who had COVID-19. So hence the title of the presentation, but also all of us were impacted by COVID-19 in some way. All of us lost loved ones, all of us dealt with a significant amount of stress due to the pandemic. So really, the idea behind the presentation is really to start getting us thinking about how it is that we can prioritize ourselves. And for people who are complete newbies to the idea of self-care, it's not just a face mask you buy at the CVS, or maybe it is, I don't know, it could be that too. So I'm going to go through the definition of self-care, a little bit of strategies and tools that you can use, and I'll talk a little bit about what I've done that have found helpful, which you're welcome to use as well. And then also creating a plan, which I think is helpful because it does create some accountability for you to follow it. And also it adds in structure. So that way you have something you can go back to every time you feel like a little overwhelmed or lost on what to do next. So I really liked this Twitter post from Jim Quick, who I follow him on social media. It reads, "You have permission to rest. You are not responsible for fixing everything that is broken. You do not have to try and make everyone happy. Remember to take time for you, time to replenish." So I love this so much because it puts you in the center, which is what I think is like the most important aspect of a self-care plan. And it really does allow for the person who is reading it to kind of have that whole package wrapped up at the end where it says, take time to replenish. That's the important part of self-care. You're letting yourself have a set of tools that help you with dealing with stress and anxiety in your day-to-day life. And this is going to look different for everyone. You might have a self-care plan that is something that you engage in daily. You might have something that you do weekly, but the activities and the moments and experiences, they have to be meaningful to you. So that's where you have to do a little bit of your own self-exploration to figure out what is it that I really find joy in, and what is it that really replenishes me, makes me feel, spiritually and emotionally sound. So I like to say with self-care, it's unique to you, but it has there's a couple guiding principles. And these are things to think about when you're putting together your plan, which of course is going to look different for everybody here. But some of the basic things are focusing on, health literacy. So, that could be just simply being aware of your own health limitations, things that you want to improve on for your health, and how it is that you're going to make steps to do that. It could also be, essentially related to both healthy eating and exercise. A lot of people, I know that exercise is not always, we might have a vision in our head of what we think exercise is. We might think it's like, oh, I have to go to the gym and run like on a treadmill for an hour. I don't want to do that, or I can't do that. It doesn't have to be that. It could be going up and down the stairs instead of taking an elevator. It could be going on a walk around your block. It can be very manageable for you depending on what it is that you feel like you're able to do now, and maybe always. It just depends. I do think, though, the benefits of exercise and healthy eating, are trying to do that as much as you can. The mental health impact is the payoff is pretty huge, just simply because it gives you a rush of positive feelings. Other things too, just really simple, straightforward, good hygiene, ensuring that you're maintaining a healthy medication regimen if you take medications. This could also involve things like, say you have a pill organizer. If you need to keep track of medications that you take and you have a lot of them, maybe making sure that you're taking those medications, you have to purchase a pill organizer or a timer or alarm or something like that to make sure that you're staying on top of that as well. It could also be maintaining or establishing a healthy environment. So maybe, you want to have a special part of your house where you have, for instance, I saw one of you guys has a lot of plants in your background. I can't find your video now. Who is it? Oh, yes, Jen. Plants and dogs.
Pets over people, sorry.
So maybe you want to have a nice, beautiful corner of your house that has a lot of plants. That kind of healthy environment that brings you a positive mindset, allow a little bit of indulgence in yourself is really what it is. And it could be something very small, like let me purchase a couple of plants for this room and really make it liven up and make it a place that you feel comfortable in. Okay. So how do you get started? Basically what I did with this slide is I broke down some of the domains or pillars of self-care. And these are some questions you might want to ask yourself, especially as you're making your plan. So, I go through a couple different of these: physical, social, mental, spiritual, and emotional. So these are all questions that, now I'll make sure that everybody gets the slides after this presentation, so you have more time to think about them. But these are the questions that I think are really important to consider when you're looking at a self-care plan. Sleep, exercise, and nutrition are really important, as I mentioned previously. We all talked about, I heard at the beginning of this, group, was that a lot of people are talking about ways that they maintain relationships to people that matter to them the most. Sometimes I know we live in a very heavily digital world nowadays, but maybe it is being thoughtful enough to just write a letter to somebody. One of my best friends, I've been friends with her for over 15 years. We don't communicate through just social media, through texting or phone calls. We actually send each other postcards. So when she is in a new place, when she's like visiting a new place, or even if she's just out and about and she sees a neat, interesting postcard, she'll send me a postcard, I'll send her one back. And we always write little thoughtful messages or summaries of our day, things like that. And that's an important way of nurturing a relationship. Mental self-care. Do you make time in your schedule to do activities that you enjoy? So, it's everybody these days, we all have Zoom fatigue, we all have, tech fatigue to some extent. Have you had a moment to go over to the dog park to walk your dog? Like, if that's an activity that you enjoy, put it in your schedule, put it in your calendar. So you might have a physical paper planner, you might have a calendar that a Google Calendar, digital calendar of some kind. Block that time off in your schedule and actually do it. Like, actually go and do it. Don't just ignore the notification, go and do it. And even if it's just for 30 minutes, it'll be something that at the end of the day, you'll think, wow, I'm really glad that I did that I took the time to take care of myself. Spiritual self-care. What are the questions you ask yourself about your life and experience? So this could be something that a lot of people get through their faith or their religion. It could be something that people might pursue in other ways. If there's different types of reflections that you want to do, it could be done through journaling, thinking about how it is that you relate to your life or things that you want to change and improve upon. And also other things too, emotional self-care, having healthy ways to handle your emotions. And that's a lifelong process. I think that all of us have both healthy and unhealthy ways to handle emotions, and we all have a tendency to kind of go in between the two, that there's no rhyme or reason to, some days are better than others. But the ideas behind that is that you're focusing on strategies or techniques that you can use to improve. So, there's a lot of good resources out there, books written by psychologists, written by therapists who talk about these different techniques that you can use to regulate your emotions. Okay, so, oops, there you go. I liked this image just because I felt like it really did encapsulate self-care in a way that I enjoyed. I like the visual itself. So one of the things that were marketed self-care relentlessly in the media and like through a lot of different ways, but it really is personal. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do self-care. It could be saying no. I heard somebody say people pleasing earlier. I can relate to that. People pleasing is one of my tendencies as well. Sometimes you just got to say no, and it's hard. It's especially hard to do that to family or friends, but it's good to set up boundaries where they're appropriate. Like that's part of taking care of yourself. Asking for what you need. Maybe there is a person that you're close to, or that you don't feel like fully understands the things that you value or that you hold important in your life. Well, asking them for what you need, or asking them for certain assistance with things. If you need help with, like, I don't know, doing like a chore in your house or something like that, and you need a friend to assist you somehow for an evening, whatever it might be, I think it's more than okay to ask for something like that. And at the end of the day, you'll find out that people are actually more willing to help than you might have imagined. Taking on too many things by yourself can make you feel overwhelmed and make you feel like, that you do need to take a step back, that you do need to kind of dial things back. So this image is one of those things that I think kind of encapsulates what it is to me. So after you do the assessment, which I know is the previous slide that I had here, I just wanted to go through some of the ways that you can approach the post-assessment, like how it is that you're setting up your plan. So look at places where your self-care is lacking. I think that that's the most important initial approach. Everybody's going to have something that might not be particularly strong. For instance, for some people, maybe they have a really strong spiritual aspect, but maybe they aren't doing a lot to take care of, their day-to-day exercise or healthy eating, or however it is that you're following that schedule there. Make sure that you set goals, but don't make them too crazy to begin with. Don't make them like really big goals that are just simply not achievable. If you're not the kind of person that exercises at all, like, don't decide to sign up for a marathon. That's just going to be discouraging for you. It's not going to be something that you're going to maybe even hurt yourself possibly, which is not good. But commit to doing a walk, once a day. I'm just thinking about times that I've gone down to see my dad. My dad and I go on a walk in the morning and in the evening every time that I go see him. So, and for him, that's fine. It's a 30-minute walk. It's brief, but it works. And my mom will walk her dogs. So that's her daily exercise that she does. Never make yourself feel bad. You are enough, and it's okay to start out and feel like this is really overwhelming. I don't know if I can do this. What I would do in that situation is just focus on something that you like doing to begin with, and make sure that you can commit to doing that on a weekly basis, or maybe even a daily basis, and start with that. You don't have to do every single domain of self-care, immediately. It's something that I think is a process that you integrate into your life. And also make sure that you're being positive, and also, if something works for somebody else and it doesn't work for you, that's fine too. People might try and tell you a lot about what you need to do, but it's always good to kind of think back and reflect on, okay, well, what is actually sustainable for me in my day-to-day life? So so hard with this little video thing for me I have to like move the video to see the slide. And also don't be afraid to try something new. That's another thing that I think is really important after you do the assessment and you ask all those questions of yourself. Like I just was talking to a friend of mine recently and she had signed up for a quilting class. I can tell you, I did a quilting class years ago and it did not go well. I mean, I was not very, I was very discouraged by that. So she has really taken it on and she loves it. But for me, I would probably sign up for just like a sewing class. I probably would not go all out and do a quilting class immediately. But it's something that is new to her and she's really enjoyed it because it's completely different from anything she's done before and has been very helpful for her in terms of having goals and having things that she can do during the pandemic when it's still fairly difficult to see loved ones easily. All right, tools. These are my tools. They don't have to be your tools, but you know, I love gardening. Gardening, I think, is amazing. I sometimes struggle with gardening. Sometimes it is a massive pain. But you know, that is not my garden, by the way. My plants don't look that good, but still, it's just the process of being out there in the dirt. I have, you know, I don't have my phone next to me. I don't have, you know, my face in a computer or what have you. And having that like assigned task that I'm doing, it does really, really help me get my mind off of things that are stressing me out. I journal a lot. That's also not my journal. It doesn't look that good, but still, I journal a lot. And sometimes I use journal prompts, which is one of the things I talked about in a prior workshop I did on self-care. They really help with structuring the responses that I give. I try to do different kinds of motivational prompts. There are a lot of them online. If you don't want to buy like a structured self-care journal, there's a lot online that you can find. And then also I meditate, which I actually was something I was completely new to doing. I started doing during the pandemic when I had a lot of anxiety and stress. And at first I was really bad at it, but you know, after time, I've gotten used to doing it. It's become a part of my daily routine. I just do 10 minutes in the morning and 10 in the evening. And it has been very helpful for me to moderate my stress. I cycle a lot. I bike and I'm a pretty active person. And I also like dogs. So petting dogs is part of my self-care. And volunteering too. So my photo with a dirty hand, I'm doing handyman projects for seniors. And volunteering is amazing. I mean, I can't say enough good things about volunteering. And I know that there's so many different opportunities to give back to the community. It has benefited me almost as much as nearly, you know, benefiting the community in general. I get a lot of emotional, personal benefit out of it, and I think it's amazing. Okay, so creating a self-care plan. What I always say is it's good to focus on kind of like these 4 aspects that are all tied to the prior slides and kind of what I was going through with the different domains as well. Work, physical fitness, emotional life, relationships, and community. So, and you can also add to these 2. Spirituality is another one that I see people commonly integrate into their self-care plans. But what you really are trying to focus on is how you can achieve self-care within these different aspects of your life. So maybe for work, it could be that, you know, you might be one of those people that has your work cell phone with you at all times outside of work hours. Maybe you just need to put your work cell phone in a drawer somewhere and just forget about it for an evening. Maybe you don't have a job like that and you can't do that, but there could be other ways that you could put healthy space between you and your, you know, your job or your anything that you find like occupies a lot of your time. So jobs don't have to necessarily be full-time employment for people who are retired, maybe you have something that feels like work that you do almost every single day. My aunt, for instance, is retired, is very active in her church. It is like a full-time job for her. She's there all the time. So when she got sick recently with cancer, she had to really step back, like really step back from what she was doing, and set some healthy boundaries and decided, okay, well, we will be only active on the weekends. We're only going to do weekend activities, and that will work for us for now. Same thing with emotional life, physical fitness, and relationships. These are all things that you want to think about, activities that you can do to make these things easier and more accessible for you. Also be aware of the barriers. How can you make changes to these barriers? It could be, say you want to go out on a date night with your husband. I heard that referenced earlier. Maybe you need to find a babysitter so you can do it. That might be the only way that it could happen. And sometimes it's stressful even just to do that, but maybe if you do that once and you find like a good person that you really like, you can contact that person again, or maybe you can take references from, friends or family that could give you resources to get like a good person to watch your kids. So it's things like that, that, you want to think about those barriers and how can you get around them? Because there are ways to get around them. It's just a matter of thinking a bit creatively. And share your plan with others. That's how you can be held accountable. Your dog or your cat might not hold you accountable, but your family or your friends would certainly could be your accountability buddies if they're open to doing that. I think that the best self-care plans, if at all, if you can collaborate with other people on them, they can be very influential and helpful, because you have a person who you can be the self-care accountability buddy for, and vice versa. Put your plan on display. I heard somebody mention vision boards earlier. It could be kind of like part of your vision board in some ways. I mean, it's a similar kind of tool. You can list the strategies that you have. You could put it on a poster board, go to Michael's, go crazy, get like a bunch of different colored pieces of paper and go to town. Illustrate your plan with drawings of the activities. So maybe you want to, actually draw it instead of write it. That's perfectly fine as well. So I have a couple examples here, and I did this based on the category. So the category of emotional life, and then the example is develop friendships that are supportive. Barriers. Your friendships are not equal in give and take. So maybe you have a friend that might be more of a friend that kind of takes than gives. So you can shift that barrier and say, define expectations with your closest friends. Don't assume your friends know what you need from them. So in a situation like that, you can say what it is that you do need from that friendship. And the hope is that friend, if they are indeed your friend, will understand and be able to take that information and really use that in the future to change how they treat you. Write down 3 good things that you do each day. That could be a part of your self-care plan. The barrier could be that you have a negative self-talk habit. A lot of us do. You can shift it by every time you catch yourself saying something negative, try to say the exact opposite. Try to bring yourself up instead of tear yourself down. Maybe even take sticky notes. Write down things like, you are beautiful, you are brave, things that are positive that describe you, and put those on a mirror in your bedroom. It sounds silly, but if you look at that mirror every day, then you're looking into having a positive mindset for the day. And that's a big part of self-care. One of the other activities, you could do something that brings you joy, that helps with your emotional life, like go to the beach or go on a hike. But if you don't have a babysitter, that was what I mentioned earlier, or the ability to get away for the evening, activate your self-care community, get your network involved to be able to try to help you with fixing that barrier and resolving it. So I have a link to meditation here. And last time I did this, this did not work for me. So hopefully it works this time. I don't know. Can you guys see this at all? Can you guys see and hear it? You can't hear it. Okay. You couldn't hear this? No. Aw,
No,
dang.
we can't hear it.
Okay. I had to figure out how to fix this, but I am going to, let me go back to my presentation. I wonder if I can I'm going to take the link, and like when you guys are after this session, I'm going to put it in the chat so you can check it out on your own time. But I do find meditation to be very helpful for self-regulation. It's one of those things that just like deeply breathing, doing belly breaths into your stomach. It's kind of crazy how much that just like really, really helps with relaxing your mind. It's transformative. I have really, really massive anxiety, and I was having panic attacks almost every day when the pandemic started. So this was how I dealt with that. And honestly, at first it was kind of like I was sitting there and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing right now. but eventually I got into the groove of doing it, and I really would feel extremely relaxed. And it's amazing. I can't say enough good things about meditating. These are some resources that I have found helpful. I always come across new ones. So if you email me, I will probably send you new ones too. The self-love journal is one of my like absolute favorite journals for it has prompts in it that helps you with like focusing on strategies or activities to build up your confidence and self-esteem. I love most of the work that Brene Brown puts out. Daring Greatly is a great book. I think that her writing is amazing. Feeling Good is a bit of an older book. I want to say maybe 1970s, 1980s. But the book is actually targeted towards people who are experiencing depression, but it's a pretty comprehensive book about depression and about also mood regulation. So it's something that anyone could benefit from. You don't have to have depression to, benefit from it. I have a couple podcasts that I listed here, and also just a couple of resources. I actually use meditation, self-guided meditation videos, guided meditation videos on YouTube in order to do my meditations. And I think that that's a good place to start if you are just getting into meditating. You can also just do deep breathing exercises if you want to start out like really small in the meditation range. You can, if you're stopped at a stoplight, do a couple of deep belly breaths. They have this strategy called box breathing. And that's like very beneficial for just having that initial, like, it's a good way of relaxing yourself. All right. So this is my email address. I do respond to people. I have gotten emails from somebody from the first time that I did this still. And it's been lovely going back and forth with her. She's been great. One of the things I didn't mention during the presentation, but I did mention when I initially did this presentation, is you can keep a journal too. So, if you have a self-care plan, one of the great ways to kind of keep yourself accountable is get a journal. You can get one even with dividers, and you can write on the tabs the different aspects of self-care that you want to achieve, and just start putting resources in there. It could be different quotes that you find inspirational to you. It could be techniques or strategies. But I find that to be a good way to have like a reference tool when you're thinking about like, oh, I need to make sure that I'm following my self-care plan. I'm starting to feel really overwhelmed. And you have that to go to whenever you feel that stress, whenever you feel like you need to use one of your resources.